all the time and everywhere, whether it's a podcast that talks about sales, whether it's a book that talks about sales, whether it's a very seasoned salesperson, they always say, ask questions and have people sell themselves. And I never really understood that until today. Like after speaking with you, I realized that the questions that they're talking about are questions that are not easy to ask. And it almost sounds ridiculous when you hear what you're saying at face value. Like, how can you make your client to ask you, how can I give you the most amount of money possible? Like, if you hear that and you don't, and you haven't heard the first part like of this podcast, then you think like no one in their right mind would ever do that. Right. But me, after going through a series of questioning that you just put out in front of me, I think that after you walking me through, once again, what happens if I like lose my income? What happens to my family? What happens to my daughter? What school are they going to go to? What's their future going to be like? What are their classmates going to be like? I would like me thinking about that. I get the feeling like I have to get this policy right now. And not only that, but how can I make sure that I get the best policy possible?
I tell you what, there's a lot of insurance agents who are going to be listening to this podcast in DC area. They need to call Chris Ferretti right now. Email him at chris@club.capital and he's going to get it. Kudos to Barry Rutten.
Seriously, man.
The funny thing is, Christopher, I have agents all the time tell me, because we actually teach them how to walk people through and get to this moment. Mm-hmm. And when the client actually, because I'll tell them, look, you'll know you've done it right when the client says, Christopher, what's the maximum I can put into this? And when I teach it, they don't believe me. And when the client for the first time says it, they're so internally, the agent is so flabbergasted, like, oh my God, they actually said those exact words. And what you're hearing is a person shift from, the Costco nature of the world, what's the cheapest way I can get this thing, to how do I take the most advantage of the strategy you've put in front of me to build my wealth and achieve the goals that are important to me and my family. And this is how you transcend. And I want to come all the way back around to Bradley's original question. This is how you transcend the commoditization of the property and casualty insurance industry. And let's just say that you're having these kinds of conversations. There's three types of assets. And if you can provide your client a total asset protection plan, you're going to have them for life. And so, I teach that you can protect their physical assets from being lost, damaged, or stolen, their financial assets from being taken away in a lawsuit, and their income assets from the threats they face from physical calamity like death and disability, and financial calamity like job loss. And if you're providing that to the people in your town, your community, your area, your state, you're going to have an extremely successful business. And once you've done that, those people are going to be extremely open and seeing you as an advisor. And then they're going to go down the road of, well, what else can you do for me? And then we start getting into this wealth building and goal accomplishment. And now you have very high income clients for life who might be paying you several $1,000s a year instead of maybe 100 or a few hundred. And now what happens to your business when they're paying you thousands of dollars a year and you're keeping them for 25 or 30 years and they're telling everybody else about you and introducing you to everybody else they know? Now what kind of business do you have? And that's why I want you to see it as kind of an integrated strategy, not how do I sell more life insurance policies?